far beyond the reach of any mortal understanding. Within the boundless, dreamlike expanse of Zeno's palace, the Grand Priest stood before his two small masters, delivering his latest report with the calm, unshakable composure that had defined his service since the dawn of existence itself. The palace itself defied any singular description, its architecture shifting subtly depending on which direction one chose to look. Towering spires of crystalline light one moment, rolling gardens of impossible, luminous flora the next, as though the very concept of a palace had been assembled from the half-remembered dreams of every civilization that had ever existed across all 12 universes combined. It was here, amid this ever-shifting splendor, that the fate of countless trillions of lives was so often decided on nothing more than a passing whim.
"The 12 universes," Dai reported, his voice smooth and measured, "have all been informed of the second tournament of power. Each is now in the process of recruiting their participants." The news sent an immediate ripple of delight through both Zenos, their small faces lighting up with unrestrained excitement, tiny fists pumping in the air. "Yay! We were looking forward to seeing battles of that caliber again," one of them exclaimed, bouncing slightly on his throne of light. But the Grand Priest, ever attentive to the subtler currents beneath the surface of any situation, allowed a flicker of genuine concern to cross his composed features. He studied his masters for a moment longer, weighing his next words carefully. "There is, however, a concern I feel compelled to raise," Dai said. "Unlike the previous tournament of power, where every participant fought with absolute desperation, giving their very best in order to survive, the removal of the elimination rule may result in somewhat less intense battles this time around." Both Zenos tilted their heads in unison, curiosity replacing their earlier excitement. "Certain participants," the Grand Priest continued, "such as Jiren of Universe 11 or Topo of Universe 6, may very well choose not to participate at all, given the absence of any clear motivation to risk their lives in such a tournament." This news did not sit well with small kings. Their expressions shifted rapidly from delight to unmistakable displeasure, their tiny brows furrowing in near-perfect synchronization. "We want to see very intense fights," one of them insisted, crossing his small arms with the stubborn petulance of a spoiled child, a child who nonetheless held the power to unmake entire universes on a whim. The other Zeno, the one who inhabited the future timeline of a world that had once nearly been destroyed by his own hand, spoke up next, his voice carrying a peculiar weight of memory and reflection. "It was an act of kindness that I expected from Universe 7 back then, but honestly, it was a little annoying that the eliminated universes came back afterwards. From the very beginning, we wanted to reduce things down to only 4 universes, so we wouldn't have to watch so many at once." The Grand Priest inclined his head respectfully, saying nothing further, simply waiting, patiently, eternally, for his masters to reach whatever decision would once again reshape the fate of the cosmos. Back on Beerus's planet, having settled upon their audacious plan, Goku and Vegeta wasted no time setting the wheels of recruitment into motion. The two Saiyans exchanged a brief nod of mutual understanding before splitting off to pursue their respective missions. Vegeta bound for Earth, Goku venturing into the depths of space to track down allies scattered across the stars. Vegeta, with characteristic efficiency, gathered Broly, Beerus, and Whis at his side before using instant transmission, a technique he had, however reluctantly, mastered over the years of training alongside his rival, to whisk the group instantly to Earth's familiar, verdant landscape. Meanwhile, Goku set his sights on 2 individuals far removed from the tranquil blue skies of his home planet. Frieza, the tyrant emperor whose very name still carried the weight of countless atrocities, and Granolah, the Cerealian sniper whose wish for ultimate strength had come at the cost of his own dwindling lifespan. Granolah stood alone upon the cracked, dust-swept plains of planet Cereal, his sharp eyes fixed on the horizon, watching the distant sun cast long shadows across the barren landscape. The wind carried with it the faint scent of scorched earth, a permanent reminder of the devastation
devastation his homeworld had suffered at the hands of the Frieza Force decades past. He felt the disturbance in the air before he saw it, a subtle shift, a ripple of displaced energy that only a warrior of his caliber could have detected. Instantly his senses sharpened, hand drifting toward the weapon at his side, until recognition flooded through him and his tense shoulders relaxed. "Hey," came the familiar, easygoing voice from behind him. "Long time no see." Granolah turned slowly, a faint wry smile tugging at the corner of his mouth as he took in the sight of the Saiyan warrior standing casually behind him, having arrived via that impossible technique of his, instant transmission, as though he'd simply stepped through a door rather than crossed unfathomable distances of space in the blink of an eye. "Well, if it isn't Goku," Granolah said, crossing his arms. "What do I owe the pleasure of your visit after all this time?" What followed was a conversation that spanned the weight of 5 years compressed into a handful of urgent, sobering minutes. Goku recounted in vivid detail the harrowing events of the first Tournament of Power, the desperate battles fought across a shattered, artificial world, the constant specter of annihilation hanging over every participant, the razor-thin margin by which Universe 7 had clawed its way to survival.
Granolah listened with a mixture of shock and disbelief, his expression darkening as the full scope of the danger his universe had once faced settled over him. He had known nothing of this, nothing of how close everything, everyone, had come to being erased from existence entirely by the whim of a child god. But it was what came next that truly sobered him. This time, Goku explained, his usual carefree tone tempered by genuine gravity, there are stronger opponents, much stronger, and there's a real possibility we could lose our lives in this one. Granolah absorbed this information with the calm, calculating stillness of a man who had long since made peace with his own mortality. After all, the wish that had granted him his extraordinary strength had come with a cruel, unavoidable price, a rapidly shortening lifespan, a candle burning far too bright, far too fast. Death was not a distant, abstract concept for him. It was an approaching certainty he had already resigned himself to. Understanding flickered in his eyes, understanding of why Goku had sought him out so insistently, why this particular tournament carried such weight in the Saiyan's request. But something else gnawed at him, something that demanded clarification before he could commit to anything. "Before you go," Granolah said, his expression hardening slightly, "I'd like to ask you something." Goku tilted his head, waiting. "Do you plan on asking Frieza to participate in this tournament?" The question landed like a stone dropped into still water, ripples of tension spreading outward. Goku hesitated only a moment before answering honestly. "Yeah," he admitted. "We need his power to face these ancestrals. I do plan on recruiting him." Granolah's jaw tightened, a flash of old buried fury surfacing in his eyes. "I see," he said, his voice suddenly cold, clipped. "In that case, I won't participate in this tournament of yours." Goku blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift. "I don't know how you can accept working alongside someone like that. That wretch murdered my entire family, and if I'm not mistaken, he exterminated yours as well. How can you possibly forgive someone like that?" Meanwhile, on Earth, Vegeta had gathered Gohan and Piccolo beneath the shade of a familiar training ground, the peaceful blue sky above a stark contrast to the storm of information he was about to unleash. The training ground itself had barely changed in years. The same worn dirt path circling the same modest house, the same weathered lookout tower visible in the far distance atop its impossible pillar of stone. It was the kind of quiet, unassuming place that felt utterly disconnected from the cosmic machinations of gods and omni-kings, and yet, time and again, it had served as the launching point for battles that determined the fate of entire universes. Gohan had grown into his scholarly life here, splitting his time between raising his daughter and the occasional reluctant return to old training habits whenever the universe demanded it of him once more. Piccolo, ever a fixture of quiet vigilance, had never truly left that life behind at all. "A second tournament of power," Vegeta announced without preamble, watching with grim satisfaction as both fighters' expressions shifted rapidly from confusion to alarm. Piccolo's already stern features hardened further, a low growl rumbling in his throat as the Namekian muttered, arms crossed over his chest
chest, his antenna twitching slightly with the same restless unease that had settled over every corner of the universe in the past few hours. Gohan, meanwhile, stared at Vegeta with wide, disbelieving eyes, the peaceful rhythm of his recent quieter life crumbling instantly beneath the weight of this new revelation. Another one? So soon? We only just... He stopped himself, running a hand through his hair, old instincts and old fears rising unbidden to the surface. How bad is it this time? Vegeta nodded grimly, before launching into the full explanation, the participation of 4 terrifyingly powerful beings from universes that had never before entered the tournament, beings whose strength reportedly surpassed even that of Lord Beerus's. He watched with grim satisfaction as both Gohan and Piccolo's expressions twisted into something approaching genuine shock at that particular detail. "You're telling me," Piccolo said slowly, "that there are beings out there stronger than a god of destruction? That's what Whis claims, and that's not all." He proceeded to explain the changes to the tournament's rules, the removal of universal elimination, replaced instead by the horrifying allowance of lethal combat between participants. Gohan's face paled slightly as the implications sank in. "If that's true," he said slowly, "then surely the other universes have drastically increased their power as well, to be willing to risk actual death in this tournament." "Precisely," Vegeta said, his tone grim. "Right now, Kakarot is off recruiting Granolah, and with no other viable option, we'll have to turn once again to that wretch Frieza for assistance." Piccolo's expression soured visibly at the mention of the tyrant's name, but he said nothing, understanding all too well the grim necessity of the situation.
"As hard as it is for me to admit," Vegeta continued, his voice carrying the bitter weight of reluctant acknowledgement, "Frieza remains the most powerful warrior currently available to Universe 7. His assistance, however distasteful, will prove more than beneficial." He paused. "If Kakarot manages to convince him to join, that brings our count to 7, including Broly, of course." He glanced between the 2 Earth-raised fighters. "I was also considering recruiting Majin Buu. His unique abilities could prove quite useful, particularly given the new rule permitting lethal combat. With him, we'd have 8 capable participants." At that moment, Gohan straightened slightly, a thought clearly forming in his mind. "I know someone else who might be strong enough to help," he said, glancing toward Piccolo meaningfully. The Namekian's eyes widened slightly in understanding, a slow nod following. "Not a bad idea at all," he murmured. "We also have the help of 17, Gohan added, turning back to Vegeta. "He must have grown considerably stronger since the last time we saw him, and so the recruitment effort split further still, Gohan setting off toward Dr. Jiro's abandoned laboratory to track down Android 17, Vegeta departing to seek out Mr. Satan for what he considered, with grim irony, the most crucial recruitment of all, and Piccolo making his way toward Kami's lookout to pinpoint 17's current whereabouts. Far from Earth, amid the harsh cratered terrain of some distant, unnamed world, Granolah found himself locked in a fierce sparring match against the Saiyan he had once fought and nearly lost to years prior. Energy blasts tore through the barren landscape, carving deep furrows into ancient rock formations, the air crackling with the residual heat of countless exchanged attacks. The sky above that nameless world burned a sickly orange. Twin suns hung low on a horizon choked with drifting ash from craters older than memory. Granolah moved with the economy of a hunter who had spent every waking moment of his adult life honing precision over brute force, his rifle transforming fluidly between configurations, each shot a calculated risk against an opponent whose speed had long since outstripped anything his scopes could reliably track. Beams of concentrated ki lanced across the battlefield, some finding their mark against afterimages already dissolving into nothing, others carving smoking trenches through solid rock as his target blurred past faster than sound could follow. He ducked low beneath a retaliatory strike that split the air where his head had been a heartbeat before, rolling across the scorched earth and coming up already firing. 3 shots in rapid succession, each one aimed with surgical precision at joints and pressure points a lesser marksman would never have identified in the chaos of combat. 2 of the 3 connected, staggering his opponent for the briefest instant, an instant Granolah seized without hesitation, closing the distance to unleash a final,
devastating blast at point-blank range.
The explosion swallowed half the ridge, dust and debris rocketing skyward in a churning column visible for miles in every direction. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the settling patter of smaller rocks raining back down across the crater's edge. Then, from within the dissipating smoke, his opponent emerged entirely unscathed, expression carrying nothing but calm, almost gentle amusement. The match had been Granolah's own proposal, a final test, a way to gauge whether Frieza's presence in the coming tournament could truly be kept in check by someone of comparable strength. He fought with everything he had, weapon blazing with concentrated ki, movements precise and lethal, honed by years of survival in a universe that had shown him no mercy, but against a fighter who could weather his most devastating attacks without so much as a scorch mark. The futility of his effort became increasingly painfully clear with every passing exchange. But in the end, it was not enough. Granolah fell to his knees, chest heaving, sweat streaming down his face as he struggled to catch his breath. "It's incredible," he panted, glancing up at his opponent with a mixture of exhaustion and grudging respect. "You've become so much stronger than the last time we fought." Slowly, he pushed himself back to his feet, steadying himself against the aftermath of the brutal exchange. "That's enough," he said finally, his voice firm despite his exhaustion. "I'll support you in this tournament. On one condition, keep that bastard Frieza far away from me." The Saiyan's expression softened with genuine gratitude, a wide grin spreading across his face as he thanked the Cerealian profusely for his assistance. But before departing, he offered one final warning. "The tournament will be in 3 days," he said. "You'll need to be on Earth before then." With that, he raised 2 fingers to his forehead, focusing his senses outward across the vast expanse of space, searching for a familiar, malevolent key signature in the distance. Within moments, he vanished entirely from Granolah's sight, leaving the Cerealian standing once more upon the cratered battlefield, a heavy, unsettled feeling weighing on his chest. How powerful, he wondered silently, must these ancestrals be if even that wretch's help is considered necessary? Aboard a sleek, imposing warship, drifting silently through the void of deep space, Frieza stood at the helm, his crimson eyes fixed thoughtfully on the star-strewn darkness beyond the viewport, when a familiar, unwelcome presence suddenly registered at the edge of his senses. He turned smoothly, an unsettling smile already curling across his lips. "Well, well," he greeted, his voice dripping with practiced cordiality. "It's been a while, hasn't it, Goku?" The Saiyan, having materialized silently behind the tyrant via instant transmission, returned the greeting with equal casualness, though his senses remained sharp, alert to the ever-present danger radiating from his former enemy. "It has been a while," Goku agreed, a faint smile tugging at his own lips. "I see you've learned to sense ki without needing one of those scouter devices your army always used." "Of course," Frieza replied smoothly, turning fully to face his visitor, his gaze sharpening into something far more intense, far more calculating. A defiant challenge gleamed in his crimson eyes as he studied the Saiyan before him. The tension in the room thickened almost instantly, the assembled soldiers stationed nearby shifting nervously, sensing the sudden oppressive weight pressing down upon the ship's bridge. Goku, recognizing the silent challenge for what it was, allowed a flicker of ultra-instinct silver aura to ripple briefly around him, meeting Frieza's intensity with an equally unshakable calm. "What's going on here?" one of the soldiers murmured nervously to another, both of them instinctively backing away from the epicenter of the building tension. "I'm amazed to see how much stronger you've become," Frieza said at last, breaking the silence, his tone carrying a note of genuine, if grudging, respect. "You've gotten stronger, too. I can tell you kept training even after achieving that new transformation of yours." Frieza's smile widened, sharp and predatory. Of course I did. I cannot allow you Saiyans to surpass my power again. It is, after all, my sacred duty as Emperor to remain the strongest being in the universe. He tilted his head slightly, studying Goku with renewed curiosity. Now, to what do I owe this unexpected visit? Don't tell me you're here to challenge me to a fight. I'd like to say yes, but right now I'm here for something far more important. He paused, his expression sobering considerably. Do you remember the tournament of power from 5 years ago? Frieza's eyes narrowed slightly, memory flickering behind that crimson gaze. In 3 days, there's going to be a second one. All 12 universes will be involved this time. I understand some very powerful beings will be participating, and I was wondering if I could count on your help. For a long moment, Frieza said nothing, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, deliberately, he clenched both fists at his sides, and the air around him ignited with power. The transformation rippled outward in stages, each one more controlled, more terrifyingly precise than the last. First came the faint shimmer of restrained ki gathering at his core, a low hum that vibrated through the metal floor of the bridge itself. Then his skin began to shift, the familiar porcelain white plating of his base form darkening incrementally, edges sharpening, becoming something closer to obsidian, gleaming under the ship's interior lighting like polished onyx, threaded with veins of molten gold. The soldiers stationed nearby instinctively pressed themselves against the walls, sensing, even without any true understanding of ki, the primal wrongness of standing so close to something so overwhelmingly powerful. A wave of pure, concentrated energy erupted outward from his form, muscles coiling with barely restrained power as he unleashed his black form, all without so much as scratching the pristine hull of his own ship, without so much as rattling a single instrument panel or dimming a single overhead light. It was a display of control so precise, so effortlessly masterful, that even Goku found himself momentarily stunned, the sheer weight of that overwhelming power pressing down upon his senses like a physical force, thick and suffocating, the way the air itself seems to thicken in the moments before a hurricane makes landfall.
Thank you guys for watching this amazing video. If you like this story, please drop a like and subscribe for more Dragon Ball content. Your support keeps going on. And see you in the next one.